Notice is properly given. Said notice having been transmitted to the Carrier News and Star Ledger on Wednesday, January 9th, 2019, as well as posting on the bulletin board in the city clerk's office. Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call?
Council members Amati,
Here.
Davis. Present. Good.
Present.
McCray.
Present.
Storch. Absent during roll call. Vice President Hockaday.
Here.
Council President Mills Randall.
Present.
6 members present in the quorum.
Madam Clerk, are there any communications from the mayor?
His Honor the Mayor, Agent O'Mac, has submitted the following nominees for vice and consent from the governing body. Lisa Burgess for the Plainfield Police Director, Myra Paredes, Plainfield Shade Tree Commission, and Drew Damon, Plainfield Shade Tree Commission.
There are no other communications and petitions. The bills list and other financial documents have been sent to the council via email. We are now on item 4, discussion action items. And we will have the presentation from our Citizens Budget Advisory Committee.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to start first by, number one, introducing again the members of the CBAC committee. Jerry Eggers, representing Barry Good, Ward's 1st and 4th. Stand please, Jerry. Cian Andrew, representing Ashley Davis, Ward's the 1st Ward.
He wanted you to say Cheyenne.
Yes, I am.
Cheyenne.
I can see him saying.
Lyle Keminar is not here right now, representing Corey Storch, 2nd Ward. Tawisha Rogers Simpson, who's also not here, will be on her way, representing Steve Hockaday, 4th Ward. Tanya Stephanie McNeil, representing Joylette Mills Ransom, 2nd and 3rd Ward. Juan Velasquez, representing Charles McRae, 3rd Ward. And myself, Valerie Ellis, representing Elton Amati, the citywide. First of all, we'd like to thank you for allowing us to come and work with you on this project. It's always exciting, time-consuming, but we always manage to get the job done. First of all, I'd like to go through just a few, and I won't be going word for word in what we presented. First of all, our committee made some observations. In a number of cases, what we identified was that professional training and staff development, along with outside counseling services, appeared to be historically overstated in most cases, meaning that there was money there that truthfully was some of it set aside money, or what we call contingency funding. What we ask for is that they take a review of those items and eliminate where possible, where there's over budgeting in those accounts. We took a look at overtime, and we would like a review of all departments and divisions to review overtime in all departments to determine where adjustments in work schedules, improved forecasting of training, vacations, special events be made so that we can reduce some of the overtime. Many departments, for instance, had publications within their budgets. We're saying that we need to review that so that we can consolidate the publications and reduce overall paper mailings, but do that through the media and communications department. Hardware and software maintenance was also seen throughout each of the department's budgets. We're asking to do the same for that. Take a look at that and then consolidate it under the IT division. A breakdown of interdepartmental transactions was not provided for review, thereby limiting our ability to identify movement of funds and employees. Our recommendation is that the finance department should produce a reconciliation report of all interdepartmental transactions, making it easier to identify the flow of funds. We did have some recommendations by department that were just unique to those departments. For the public works area, We said it appears to be some duplications of roles and responsibilities when it came to allocating funds. And we made the recommendation to reevaluate those departments for synergies in those roles and responsibilities, thereby reducing your overall budget. Also, we were looking for a breakdown of what the number of seasonal employees that were assigned to the recreation division. Under the public library, we recommended that you review the entire budget for all departments to identify funding that can be allocated to the library. That's the $45,000 that the library is looking for to fulfill the Cisco position. We also asked that the Public Works Department for Plainfield Public Library, that the Public Works Departments, that they would handle maintenance for the Plainfield Public Library projects. Communications and information technology. Revise the goals and objectives to streamline the departments within first a 90-day period, then take a second look at a 6-month period, and then at a 1-year time frame, and provide measurable benchmarks for establishing new departments. Media and communications must provide more details in their plans and objectives for overall operation. In the interim, what we would like them to do is give consideration to outsourcing some of the functions within media and communications in an effort to minimize initial personnel, equipment, and production until a long-term plan is developed and approved. The IT department division. Perform software updates during the evening hours by eliminating the need for workday interruptions. IT should be more proactive in its review and update of software throughout the various departments. IT should remove dollars associated with the robotics program from their budget and transfer dollars to the recreation department. Finance. Look into the use of the United States Postal Service, EDDM, for all citywide mailing distributions in an effort to reduce postage costs. And also to remove a lot of the miscellaneous lines that were budgeted for and clearly define their intended use. Economic development. Reevaluate the use and offering of pilot and other business incentive programs with a goal of shifting some of the tax burden to commercial entities to help reduce or stabilize homeowner property taxes. Continue to seek grants to fund the department. Health and social services. Aside from division goals and objectives, the Director of Health and Social Services should provide overall departmental goals and objectives for 2019 with a summary of 2018 accomplishments. This was noted in the last 2 years' reports. Provide transparency of budget shifts and offsets when receiving grant funding. Department of Police. Reevaluate professional training and staff development for possible reduction during year-over-year, given year-over-year spending. Department to further share community research programs. The Director of Police other expenses item includes funds for lighted stop signs, which seems to have been a better fit within the Department of Public Works Signal Division. A possible transfer of funds to the Department of Public Works may be warranted. CBAC is in agreement with the elimination of shot spotter late fees by renegotiating contract terms and conditions. Look to increase parking bureau funding to cover the cost to procure and install electronic parking meters. Review the possibility of increasing school crossing guard pay for fiscal year 2020. Department of Fire. Ensure funding is available to complete updates and renovations to buildings, bathroom facilities, and boiler maintenance at all fire stations. Work closely with IT to upgrade equipment and software. CBAC is in agreement with the Director of Fire to transfer funds from overtime to convention conference registration that is already depleted. The Director of Fire should investigate the need for the chief's expense. In conclusion, a review of the budget shows a large range of priorities for government spending, which reflect the diverse priorities and opinions of Plainfield residents and a desire to accomplish economic growth while also maintaining a balanced budget and lower property taxes. CBAC has identified some areas for increased focus, particularly with the outside consulting services, miscellaneous expenses, overtime, media and communications, and information technology environments. Overall, CBAC is proud of the city's strong economic position leading up to the release of the 2019 budget. The members of CBAC would like to extend a special note of appreciation to the city's finance director, Mr. Ron West, for his guidance and assistance throughout this review process. And we'd also like to thank the City of Plainfield's finance team, who took the time out of their schedules to extend a warm and cordial welcome to our committee at its very first meeting. We've also included in our package some charts that reflect the individual budget and the percentages of expenditure for each account. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. I know you'll hear from the finance chair later, but on behalf of the full council, we really appreciate CBAC's work. That report was very well written, and hopefully we're going to have the administration take the advice of what was in there. Now, the public comments will be limited to, oh, I'm sorry, what did I do? Oh, it's not time for that. Correct, he doesn't do that until he does his report. I can't hear what you're saying. Yeah, that's what I said. That's what I'm telling you. All right, we're ready. We're back again. Public comments will be limited to resolutions and ordinances being considered this evening. Each speaker will be given a total of 3 minutes. The floor is now open.
Good evening, everyone. Mary Burwinkle, 1785 Sleepy Hollow, Maine. There's a resolution on page 7 of 10 identified as capital A, capital C, regarding another area in need of redevelopment study on South Avenue. In the wake of what I consider to be the recent Wawa fiasco, I will worry every time I see one of these requests that some developer wants to build something and you plan to let the developer do it regardless whether the project is appropriate for that area. This is very short-sighted. You should decide what is good for Plainfield and the particular area prior to looking for the developer. You should expect a lot of citizen pushback if this is another unfortunate project. Also, regarding bond 1267 ordinance, I see that the city plans to cut the library budget, but spend almost $500,000 on the cultural center that used to be the Unitarian Church that, frankly, I didn't know we needed, and that's probably the tip of the iceberg of the expense. Meanwhile, there's space at Plainfield to be rented at Ducre School of Art and probably at 2 of the big churches on 7th Street, and for less than that if you need space for cultural. I empathize with the Unitarian congregation and know the history of the building. However, in my opinion, it is functionally obsolete, likely has 40 years of deferred maintenance and no parking. And now apparently it's the taxpayers' problem. I strongly believe the city should not agree to take any property from any nonprofit without full disclosure of cost and a referendum of the voters. Thank you.
Seeing no one else coming to the mic, can I have a motion to close?
So moved, Council President. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Are there any questions for, let me see if I flip too fast, I'm sorry. Okay, I did flip, okay. Consideration of public hearing, second reading and final passage. MC 2019-09 through MC 2019-11 and bond 1267 is scheduled for public hearing and second reading on May 13th, 2019 as advertised, excuse me. Are there any questions from council on these ordinances? Okay. So. Okay. So we can move then to the agenda that was written on my little script. Okay. I have a motion to move them, add them to the agenda.
So moved. Second.
All right. Are there any questions for resolutions A through I? Do we have a consensus to add these to the agenda?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Are there any questions for resolutions J and K? As the mayor's
Council President, on Resolution J, just for the benefit of the public, if the administration or Director Riley could just give us some background on Ms. Burgess for members of the public who may not be familiar with her.
I'm calling any business administration.
Sure, Council President, council members. The resolution J is to request advice and consent for the appointment of our new director of police, Ms. Lisa Burgess. She is a retired lieutenant from the Plainfield Police Department. She was with our police department for over 30 years, and she recently retired in 2017. So with that, I'm going to ask Director Riley to fill in any additional blanks that I left behind.
That's no problem. Well, good evening, I'll just talk a little loudly. Lieutenant Burgess, she worked underneath my command since I came here in 2014. She was very, very instrumental in assisting me and the entire division, moving the division in a positive direction, which it needed to be. So I welcome her. You can't find a better superior officer than Lieutenant Burgess to help the city, to help me, and to help the men and women that's already been here. She's homegrown. She's been in Plainfield for years. She was born and raised here, and I really welcome it. The only difference, what I tell everybody, is she's a female and she's a little bit better looking than me and less gray hair.
I agree.
She's going to be a great addition. I'm more than confident that she has the respect of the men and women within the police division, as well as my respect to really keep this police department moving forward, and I welcome. You stand up for a second. This is Lisa.
Council President.
Okay, yes, Mayor, Your Honor.
So in addition to all that has already been said about retired Lieutenant Lisa Burgess, we have said or done a number of firsts in the city of Plainfield. And I am elated over the fact that not only are we appointing a highly skilled, qualified person to become the director of our Plainfield PD, someone who has risen through the ranks, someone who was born here and someone who knows the city, but I am especially excited over the fact that we are appointing the first female to lead the Plainfield PD, and I believe the first female to lead a police department in Union County. And so I think that is something that we should all applaud. And not to mention that Jazz and Valerie needed some company.
All right. Okay, so we have a consensus that this on the agenda, J and K.
Yes.
Does the Corporation Council Office have items to be considered this evening?
Yes, Council President, thank you very much. I have one item to add. I asked the council to add a resolution authorizing settlement in the matter of King versus the City of Plainfield in the amount of $285,000 to be paid by our insurance carrier. Thank you.
Okay. Have, any questions or other questions, because we had executive session? Okay. To move this to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Would the police department please present their items?
Good evening, Council President, Council again. I have three items L, M, and N for the agenda. Would you, anybody have any questions?
Are there any questions from the council?
Yes, I have a question. On resolution N, do we know about how many overtime hours we're looking at with that grant? And is there a plan to strategically place that overtime? Like, is there a plan to strategically use that overtime money?
Well, item N may not necessarily be used for overtime. It may be used for literature, it might be used by equipment to help reduce traffic safety. In terms of overtime, I'm not going to discuss in terms of how we're going to strategically deploy our officers throughout the city when we're trying to reduce accidents and crimes or, in a situation like this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Have a consensus to move these items L through N?
Yes.
Okay. Would the Department of Finance please present their items?
Yes, I have two items this evening, Council. Item O, which is the, amendments to the introduced budget, where we're adding $1,334,548 in grant funds and addressing the issue that was been raised previously about funding for the library to the tune of $45,000. That's what's reflected in the amendments to the budget. Item P, is just the fact that we are scheduled to approve or have a budget hearing next week and possible acceptance or adoption of the budget. But we still need state approval before we can go ahead and do that. Any questions?
Well, we're going to get the amended budget from the clerk, and we thank you for you and your staff for finding them $45,000 for the library. Yeah. Any questions from the council?
I have a question. How does the recommendations that CBAC presented, how does that reflect in the budget? Is it reflected in the budget?
The financial piece that they recommended, which was the $45,000, is reflected in this amended budget. And the director of finance, it's not the director of finance, the chairperson of the finance committee will put a motion on to do that, if that's your only question.
And then I guess it's more of a concern than a question, is about the recreation division. I know Director Dabney did tell us that the pools will be opening on time, but my concern is with that shortfall still in the budget, how long are the pools gonna be open? And how does that affect, our fall programming as well?
Director Dabney, did you want that?
Yes, we're looking to address everything. Our goal is to have the pools open from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We're looking at every which way to make that work. I'm working with the finance director and staff to try to make all those accommodations, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Good.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'd like to take also the time to thank the CBAC. The Finance Committee has received budget recommendations from council members and the CBAC committee. We thank everyone for their valuable input. This shows just how much you really care about the welfare of our city. The Finance Committee has carefully reviewed the recommendations and determined that the council should accept the recommendation of the CBAC with the recommendation to restore the $45,000 to the library. Therefore, the Finance Committee makes a motion that the council accept the budget as presented with the restoration of the $45,000 to Plainfield Public Library. Thank you.
You second it?
I second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Now, I guess, as we did that, we know we want the amendments. We'll just say O and P. Can I get your consensus to place them on the agenda?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Public Works, would you please present your item?
Madam Council President, members of council, I have 5 resolutions before you. Have any questions?
Does any council member have questions on items Q through T?
Yes, I have a question.
1, 2, 3, 4. You got 4 or 5? You got 5. 4.
Council President.
The T1 is his?
Yes, it's
I thought
his.
it was economic development, I'm sorry. So I have to go to the business administrator. You have
Yeah,
to-
so I think it would be prudent, Council President, if we can take Q, R, and S, and T to see if they have any questions, move those ones, and then I will introduce T1. If that's okay with you?
He's requesting to get approval for Q through T first. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, council, because T1 has a direct relationship to Q, could we get your consensus to adopt, to move Q to the agenda next week? So we can go back to T1.
Council President, I have a question on Resolution T.
What?
Resolution T.
I just want to deal with Q right now.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a question about you.
Okay.
I did ask for a request of a list of, in the order of the resurfacing would be done throughout the city. You think maybe we could get a list?
Yes. Q is a grant that we're using for that. The list you're going to get, we do put it together for the co-op, under Morris County Co-op for the streets we're going to press. Mill and pay.
All right, thank you. That's what I was
We're putting it together still, Councilman.
Okay. Any other questions on Q? Okay. Can we move, Q is going to be moved, right? Is that correct? Can we have consensus to move Q?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. T1.
Okay, so we introducing Resolution T1, which our city clerk will distribute some copies. But council members, what this resolution is going to be doing is amending a previously approved resolution in April, R 14619. And the amendment of this resolution is simply pointing to a different account number for the funding to award this contract in the amount of $107,750 as previously approved. So the amount and the vendor is not changing. The only thing that is changing is the account number that we pointing to be able to get the funding to adequate award the contract. So that's what the resolution is doing.
Okay, are you fine? We moved the resolution before. This is an account number movement, same value of 107,000 and some change. Is everybody fine?
Yes, Councilman.
Elton was looking. Are you okay? Okay, you good? We're good? And your question now on T, and I'll just run all of at the same time.
Yes, so, with these properties that we have liens against, are any of these properties on the vacant and abandoned property list?
Clean liens?
Yes.
These are properties that were claimed like lots, et cetera, vacant lots, and some properties that were owned. The property owned, but are, pretty much that's what that is.
Right, so, like one of these properties was cleaned twice. Is that a property that we have on our vacant and abandoned property list? Have we looked to put it on the list? Or do we have people living in it? Is the question.
Which property was that you're referring to, Councilman?
216 Prescott Place.
It could be a vacant property, or it may be a vacant lot. Whatever it is, we take the appropriate action by sending out notice of violation to the owner, and then from that point, we proceed to clean it. So I'm trying to figure out what the question.
I think Director Brown has something to add.
So indeed it is on our list, and what we do is we work with that department to clean and lean it. So that's the way we hold vacant and abandoned property owners accountable for the work that they have to do on their properties.
Thank you, that was the answer.
Any other questions, R through T1?
Yes.
Okay. You had a question? I said any other questions? This must be my southern drawl. Okay. All right, if no other questions, can I have a consensus to move R through T1 to the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. With the Department of Economic Development, please present.
Good evening, Council President, Council members. I have items U through, I'm sorry. Good evening again. I have items U through AF. Are there any questions regarding any of the matters on the agenda?
Are there any questions from the council members? Okay.
So, Director Jackson, so in regards to item U, I know one of the line items was $500,000 for the North Ave pedestrian mall. Can you just go into detail in terms of what that would be used for?
So we do have grant funding for the North Avenue pedestrian mall, but we don't have enough in grant funds to cover the entire project. So that is $500,000. A portion of that will be for the design of the North Avenue pedestrian mall, and then the rest of it would be related to the construction and construction oversight.
Question B,
Yes,
professional services,
for
We're on
letter B,
V, yes.
as the planning consultant for professional redevelopment, please.
And planning services. So earlier this year, you certified about 4 firms to do redevelopment and planning services for the city of Plainfield. This particular resolution is for CME Associates, and what we're asking them to do is to do major site plan review. We're experiencing an inordinate amount of work in the Department of Economic Development, given the number of studies and redevelopment plans that we are doing. And so that's generating projects into the cycle, and we need the assistance.
I guess my other question would be, this is not to exceed $50,000. Could that go up, or you're pretty certain that that's all?
I'm pretty certain that's all. That is to help with the work that would be directed by the city, but the fees for the engineering firm would primarily be handled through applicant escrow accounts.
Thank you, Drew.
Just a question. So, given that we've identified a need to hire an outside contractor to support our department, is there any plans in the future to perhaps hire additional employees for the planning department?
Not at this time. We consider this a spike in the workload because of the number of activity we have going on. And so this helps us to handle the workload without adding staff and the associated benefits costs associated with additional staff.
I have a question on resolution U. Will the Central Business District now be in charge of the UEZ money, or is this just an allocation to them?
No, this is not an allocation to the Central Business Improvement District, the SID for short. This money is to do three things. That is to beautify, market and promote, and business education and training for our business owners. And so what we're trying to do is focus on downtown at the Plainfield station to make it more inviting as we build a new pedestrian mall.
Okay, I think the question about marketing goes back to when we had the budget hearings. If we have a communications department, why are we sending funds to SID to market?
This is not being sent to SID. This whole UEZ budget will be managed by the Economic Development Department. We're not sending any money to SID. We will do joint efforts with the SID where they will use some of their funds to assist in marketing and promotion. So this is marketing the Taste of Plainfield, Restaurant Week, the pedestrian mall and businesses. And of course, this marketing will be handled in terms of the content by the communications department.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no other questions from council members, do I have a consensus to add these items being U through A, F to the agenda? Council?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Drew over there, you're doing?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Department of Health and Social Services.
Good evening, Council President and council members. The Department of Health and Social Services would like to present AG through AK. Are there any questions?
Okay. Are there any questions from council members?
Yes.
Okay.
For resolution AJ, when will we know if we'll receive the grant, or have we already received it?
No, we have not already received the grant, and we expect that we should find out in some time, late May, early June.
Okay, for resolution AK, does the department have any programs and events planned to raise awareness? I think it's good that we recognize the month, but what action are we putting behind recognizing Mental Awareness Month?
So the department, it's twofold. Sometimes we simply recognize an event to bring attention to it, and sometimes we do provide outreach. In this particular case, what we are doing is we're buying information pamphlets and things to let people know what mental health and some of the stigmas around mental health and how to do outreach for those or to get the services that those individuals need. We're not doing a program per se.
Thank you.
No other questions? Can I have consensus to add these items to the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Will the administration please present their ordinances submitted for consideration? Is that the business? You're gonna read them? Okay.
Yeah, sure, if you.
Okay, use them, clerk.
So, we presented ordinances, the first reading, MC 21912, 21913, 21914, and MC 21915.
Any questions, council?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
What is the site currently paying in taxes now? Do we know?
For the, which site?
The Allen Young Apartments.
The Allen Young apartment is currently under a pilot now, and they currently pay in taxes $194,000. And under, let me see, under the new pilot of the first year, they would pay almost $232,000.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think one of the things I want to point out here is that this is yet another attempt on the part of the administration in the city to make sure that we provide decent, quality, affordable housing to the residents of our city. And this investment that is being made is an investment in the people who live in these apartments. Upgrades of all of the units, an investment of a significant amount of dollars, which would enable the residents to enjoy a decent quality of life in these apartments, as well as providing additional revenues to the city.
Do we have consensus to add these items to the agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Citizens are welcome to address the council on any governmental item of concern to them, whether or not it is scheduled on the agenda above. During this portion of the agenda, a total of 60 minutes has been allocated for all public comments to be presented. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium and give your name and address to the clerk for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, will be limited to 5 minutes. Large groups are urged to select someone to represent them.
Good evening, Council President. Good evening, Council. My name is Jim Spear. I live at 609 Belvedere Avenue. I just want to speak about a resolution that you approved tonight. Unfortunately, I didn't get here in time before the vote, but I'd like to speak about it now. It's about an in need of redevelopment plan for parcels on Leland Avenue and South Avenue. If you're not familiar with the parcels, it includes the what used to be Sugar Mill Cream Building on Leland Avenue next to the Hope's daycare facilities, and then it encompasses the Burger King and the Fig Market, and I guess across from the never remember if it's Atlantic or Pacific, a building next to it where they actually work on bombs as a building there. So it includes all those parcels. There's no question that that area needs to be redeveloped. I'm certainly in favor of that. what my concern is, and I'm just going to give a little history here, is 12 years ago, they proposed a 7-story building, at Geo Keller's. As you can imagine, that pretty much didn't fit that area. So the neighborhood association was created mostly around that to advocate that that not be done, and that some type of smart growth could be planned for the area. Because what was happening is developers really didn't know what the vision of the city was for those stretches around the train station. So we the neighborhood association, contacted the administration. The former administration tried to stop it. We weren't very successful. So what we did is we circulated a petition. And within that petition, we advocated that the project not be approved the way it was, and that the city, through the recommendations of the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, get what's called a vision study. It's a smart growth study. And Councilman, it was actually the planning board member Billy Toth's idea to do that. He's very involved in planning, and he was able to convince then Councilman Rashid Bernie and Councilman Corey Storch to convince the assemblymen to put some pressure on their Briggs to allocate the funds to have the vision study. The vision study was then conducted by NJIT graduate students. And what they did, and I was the only layman on the board, the rest of them were planners, I was involved very much in it, is they conducted charrettes, which were around the schools, all the different schools in the city, where we would bring the residents of the city in and see what their vision was for the redevelopment around what was once the MAC building, which was the train station in downtown and the train station of Netherwood. So that when the developer came to the area, he wouldn't have to go to the zoning board of adjustment, he could go to the planning board, because the use that he wanted to put there, or the density or the intensity, which is the height, or the density meaning the number of dwellings, would be allowed, and you wouldn't have to get variances for it. It was a very successful study. You can go on YouTube and you can put in words for it, and you can come up with it. It's a pretty simple read. And it was all done with the input of the residents, with the professionals, with the planners, and some of the crazy ideas were taken out of it, and the practical ideas were implemented it. And then that plan then went to the planning board, which then implemented it through rezoning of the areas. An example, a 4-story building wasn't allowed next to the Netherwood train station. It is now. Across the street, the plan was, okay, 3 stories across the street, right? Have parking desks on the back of the buildings along the railroad tracks, because that made the most sense. And then, a concern, and this you should all be concerned about, is what makes Plainfield different than other cities, right? Why would someone want to come rent an apartment here, and that when Westfield you have a beautiful downtown area, Somerset you have a developing downtown area. Why come to Plainfield? So they added aspects of it that would attract people. One was a green walkway along the back of it, along the railroad tracks. It's still in the plans today. So every developer that comes now, it's taken away. They have to do it, and then the planning board has to give them a variance. I may not have all the words right here, but it's something like that, and they take it away. So what's happening slowly is that this whole development plan that was approved 100% by the city council and the planning board is being torn apart, because we're lowering the level, we're lowering the bar to allow council people, to allow developers to do what they want. Could I please just have 2 more minutes, Madam President? 2 more minutes and I'll wrap it up. I think I'm being very fair, and I think I'm being very informative to the council people who aren't aware. I just have one simple request, one more request, 15 seconds. All I ask now, after what's happened with this Wawa, and I thought the people would be in favor of Wawa, I really did. I think it's a great thing that Wawa wanted to come. One last thing, just one last thing, please, Council President, one last thing, I'm just going to say one last thing. All I ask is this redevelopment plan, that there's transparency in it. Let the residents know what it is. It doesn't have to be all this secrecy behind it. Because what's going to happen
Transparency is your word.
is they're going to fill up these meetings with residents, and you don't want that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else come to the mic, okay, let's look.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, we have to take a seat.
No.
Okay.
This is John. Timothy Piano. A couple things to the council. French School of Music is now going to be joining into Ducray, so we're saving the arts at Ducray because Judy's left town and she's moved on. So we're trying to incorporate French School of Music in there. We're trying to fix our property up. You know, it's not easy being a nonprofit. We don't have the resources. But we have issues that we are beyond us. And I checked with the city today about questions. And they said I have to go to the council now to ask these things. We want to fix our driveway, our aprons, but we were supposed to get new aprons when Central was done 2 years ago. But because it was pulled back and we only had blacktop put on, they didn't do the curb cuts and everything else. We have a blacktop driveway on our apron into our drive. The city said that we have to go to council and ask for a variance to have the street fixed so we can properly do it, or we have to spend the money to have cement put in. Cement's expensive when we thought that it was. So what I'm asking the council is, can somebody come by the school, look at it, see what we can do? Because it's close to $20,000 to have both our driveways fixed. Then we have to fix the sidewalk, because that's all blacktop, and it's been blacktop for many years. Now, are we grandfathered in, or do we have to live with this? My other issue is that we are doing well with a lot of programs over there and a great turnout, but at the same time, it's very difficult to keep the flooding issue from the previous thing that I've come to you guys about since 2004, about the water that stays on the property. And we need to also have somebody look at that, because that was a progress bond or whatever it was to fix the problem, but it was never solved. So we're still inundated with the water from Randolph coming into Ducray's property from Field. Everything goes in. So it would be nice if somebody could, from the council, help direct this situation. The other thing is, thank you for the $45,000 for the library, but I find it really weird that we have yet to address the $350,000 that were spent on SUVs for the directors of the school, for the city, in this trip to Hawaii, which is ridiculous that we have 7 members from the city when we're about to get a tax increase, and you are going to be spending $35,000 to $40,000 on airfare, hotels, and everything else. And it's your money, but it's not. It's our money. So all this spending's going on, and everyone's standing here wondering why we can't keep libraries open and our art's happening here. We want to spend $500,000 on the building for the FUSP, which was falling down when they were there. They unloaded it onto the city, and the taxpayers are going to pay for it. We're not asking anything from Ducray to the city because we tried to ask. There's no interest, but we are going to keep the arts going by hook or by crook. We're going to keep it going and make it happen for the people of Plainfield. Thank you.
Hi again, Mary Burwinkle, 1785 Sleepy Hollow Lane. Following up on what I said a little bit earlier, very briefly, and what Jim Spear was talking about, we strongly believe that if you go into the trouble of doing an area in need of redevelopment study, that you probably already know who the developer is and what the developer wants to build. And we think the public is entitled to know that. We think we should know what's going to happen. We think it ought to be studied. You shouldn't spend any more money on it until you tell the public what is going to happen. That's a very, in my opinion, first of all, it's been heavily studied, that particular area, and it is a very critical area in Plainfield. You drive up Watchung Avenue, drive up Leland Avenue to get to Plainfield, and it goes all the way up, and that's a show place for Plainfield. So we want to make sure something is developed in a way that's going to be appropriate of the area. So we think you know who the developer is and what they want to build, and we don't want to be surprised by that. We think you should tell us that. Thank you.
evening. John E. Pritchard, formerly of 723 Orange Avenue, Plainfield, now 410 Spruce Avenue, Garwood. This month, we're coming upon a holiday that celebrates our freedom, Memorial Day, to honor the memory of those who lost their lives fighting for our country in our Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Coast Guard, and Air Force. Armed Forces Day is the third Saturday of this month, if I recall, and I believe it is. Anyhow, we need to back our soldiers, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, and Airmen, some of whom are from Plainfield. We failed to do that during the war in Vietnam. We lost 16 men during that time. 16 Plainfield sons lost their lives fighting for us. Those who came back, they were called Nazis, murderers, baby killers. I'd like to see that word Nazi retired once and for all. That's another word I'd like to see retired. The poor brave soldier and their spies, nor count him as a stranger. Remember, he's his country's stay in day and hour of danger. Also, we need to reactivate the hospital in Plainfield. We need to reactivate Muhlenberg. The sooner that's done, the better off we all will be. This is a national security issue, and as well as a health issue for Plainfield. We need a hospital that's capable of mission. What if another 9/11 attack occurs? We'll need that hospital and many others very, very badly. The sooner we activate Muhlenberg, the better off we all will be. Do I make myself clear?
Nancy Pugh, 1129 Myrtle Avenue. First of all, I want to thank the city and the council for the amendment for the library. I attended an event there on Saturday, and there are a lot of people from outside of town that come and use that library, so I appreciate the 90 cents that you put in for me for that extra money for the library. Timothy talked about water on Ducray. I hope that people take time and go through Greenbrook Park and Cedarbrook Park. I know you don't have any control over those parks, but the water table has now risen because we had the heaviest rains last winter, last year. And if you are hiring all these consultants, it might be good to hire a hydrologist to figure out why. Greenbrook Park is so heavily used that the ground now is compacted. They're playing soccer there, and the dust rises up when it is dry, but they played in the mud. People are driving through that park and disturbing it. That was a site of a Revolutionary War encampment. It's being damaged, but I know the same problem is over at Cedarbrook Park. There's something going on with the water levels. I've lived in this town over 50 years, and I've never seen the change like I've seen the past year. It's like a swampland in Greenbrook Park now. You can hardly use the areas for picnicking. The basketball court that they put in there is underwater. The only thing that's not underwater is the playground area, but they can't use the basketball area. And my other thing, I've been trying to get Bonnie Watson-Coleman, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman, to co-sponsor HR 1179, which is the African American Burial Grounds Network Act. Representative Payne just signed on as a co-sponsor. It's part of the National Park Service to protect African American burial grounds. We do have some in this area, and if there's anybody that has any influence with Congresswoman Bonnie Watson-Coleman, please ask her to sign on to HR 1179. Thank you very much.
Okay, seeing no one else come to the mic, could I have a motion to close public comment? All those in favor? Aye. May I have a motion for adjournment?
Council President, can I have one comment? Just for information, the master plan is the visioning document for the city of Plainfield. We're required by state statute to update our master plan every 10 years. There will be numerous public meetings and charrettes throughout the entire city of Plainfield as we embark upon creating and updating our master plan. So again, there will be a schedule that's put out once we have a team on board related to the master plan, and we're about to embark on that planning document shortly. Thank you.
Okay. No other comments, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Meeting is adjourned.